we haven't yet felt the effects of anything. Like, there's something you mentioned before we hopped on where you said um, that just the idea that you're gonna have to pay more for things automatically makes people pay more for things. You know what I mean? So we're just living in that fear of what's about to happen state. I feel most Americans are there. And to be honest, I feel like the average American doesn't know how it's going to affect them, has no clue what may affect them. So they're just scared in general because they hear like the world is like the sky is falling.
Hey, welcome to Uncommon A State of Mind, where we debate different ways to leverage your next investment to create time freedom, legacy impact, and generational wealth so you can live the uncommon life. But in order to do that, you must be uncommon.
Hey, and I'm AD, also known as AD, the Fly Realtor.
Awesome, awesome. So, today, and I hate to do it, but we have to talk about what's relevant and what's on everybody's minds as far as investing, and it has to be these tariffs.
Gotta be.
It has to be because, the price of goods and materials has gone up, especially if you're working on a project right now or if you have future projects coming up. You have to take those, high tariff hikes into consideration. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass it to AD off this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, it's not something we necessarily want to cover. We don't want to make this feel or sound like a political show, but at the end of the day, the politics do affect your investing. So, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, big time. No,
Let's
and
see.
and
Let's see.
some of the information that you shared with me, I mean, is huge. You know what I mean? Like, what's awesome is as of right now, it says here that we're down. We've decreased inflation rates down to 2.4% when it was 2.8% in February. But the country's expecting inflation rates to go up to what I think was what 3.6% in December, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right.
That's
My
scary to think
bad.
about.
Go ahead. My
Yeah,
fault.
so
Go ahead.
I said, no, yeah, that's scary to think about.
Yeah, no, for real, because like we're just now starting to experience like a little bit of relief from inflation. You feel me? Like inflation has been like going dumb hard on us for a cool minute now. You know what I mean? So like to barely be starting to like get that relief and it's like, oh, okay, things are going cool. And then in swoops your boy, President
Mhm.
Trump, good old Donnie. He got other plans, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, I really don't know how this is because the Fed and reps from the Fed have openly already said that or I shouldn't say reps from the Fed, but people close to the Fed have already said that like this is definitely affecting their future decision making. You know what
100%.
I mean? So it's like at least they're not front and acting like, oh, we're completely unaffected. It's like, and it's crazy because I was one of the people who I'm going a little on a tangent, but just bear with me here. I was one of the people who I'm like Donald Trump can't make the Fed do anything, and it's like, no, yes he can. He's doing it right now because he's making them have to do something. You know what I mean? Like, if things keep going crazy, they might have to drop those interest rates. They might have to drop the interest rates. Like, I'm not an economist, what formula at what point that they feel they need to do that. But things can't keep going as they are. But let's just give you an update to where we are right now. You know what I mean? Because Donald Trump, he's a very volatile president, and he makes our economy volatile as well. So things are changing every day. So like, let's really just go from where we are. This is the weekend of April 12th and 13th. So right before tax day, which is in a couple days. So this is where we are currently. Do you want to go ahead or should I just like fill in a little?
No, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yes. All right, so pretty much everybody knows that the biggest uh, hit that any country has taken so far from these tariffs from Donald Trump has been China. That seems to be the main adversary. They're the ones in the crosshairs right now. Everybody else is kind of just they're getting the blowback because of how hard we're trying to go on China. That's what's starting to look like. But So Donald Trump decided that there's going to be a pretty much a unilateral 10% tariff on just about all nations, almost all nations. But then China's is going to stay at 125%. So this did help the stock market. The markets did. We have seen some relief in the market due to this. I know my Nvidia, my Apple, and my Amazon all went up, because of this. Oh, and then also he did mention that laptops, cell phones, and chips, and I think a few other electronics will also be excluded from tariffs. So they're
Okay.
not going to be affected by tariffs. So I do kind of find that interesting, whereas like at first it's like, oh, I don't care. Everybody's going to get it. Every industry, I don't care what it does to our companies. You guys are going to have to hold strong. You know what I mean? It's like all this stuff. And then like now we see like the little scale backs like here and there because what are the S&P 500 is composed of 500 companies, but if you take out like the top 7 to 9 companies, the S&P 500 is actually down
Yes,
and
100.
has been down for a long, long time. You know what I mean? So it's like it's really the strongest companies: Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, TSM. You know what I mean? Like all the Magnificent Seven, and then a few other strong tech companies is what's carrying the American stock market as we speak right now. So he did make sure to put things in place to not affect those companies as much. So I do think that's interesting because those are the companies that literally propel and hold up our stock market. So it's like everybody else is still going to get crushed, at least to some degree, but at least they're in position to not lose as much profit.
Well, I mean, but we kind of already knew that that was always going to happen. You know what I mean? As far as a
It had
large,
to.
huge companies, they're always going to find a way to weather the storm. It's the small guys. It's the guy. It's the small guys that get the brunt of the force here. You know what I mean? Or the
Right.
brunt of the attack here. So it's I don't know. It's that's pretty much all I have to say about that as of right now. Like it's just crazy that we're in this time, but we expected this. You know what I mean? We knew that these tariffs were going to affect the economy. We knew that especially in the beginning stages of this, it was going to hurt us more than it benefited us. So we'll see what it looks like in the future. But all I know is for our investors out there, you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's a very, very interesting time, especially when it comes to labor or labor and materials. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
It's hard.
Let's Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's change gears to, let's hit that real estate angle a little bit more. So, for example, like interest rates right now, they've been pretty stable as we touched on before. Like I know initially we were expecting what was it, like 3 or 4 drops in 2025, and then like later on it turned into like one, two, more likely one. You know what I mean? Rate drop. Am I correct? Like in 2025. So right now, it's kind of just been held steady since December 2024. We've been at like 4.25 to 4.5% that whole time. So now, people still aren't sure what's going to go on. But I mean, again, things have been pretty stable, but it does look like the more things go, like the Fed has to take notice to the effects of these orders laid by our president. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of what direction they think we need to go in and what they feel they're going to do to influence that. That's what it comes down to. You know what I mean?
100%, 100%. And I think it's smart of the Fed to keep interest rates steady as of right now. There's so much volatility going on in the world right now that it
Right.
doesn't make sense to make a move on interest rates just yet when we're not sure, the outcome
We're not
of,
sure.
imposed on us. So I think that's a
Yeah.
wise decision.
No, yeah, it's too early really because yeah, we haven't yet felt the effects of anything like, there's something you mentioned before we hopped on where you said um that just the idea that you're gonna have to pay more for things automatically makes people pay more for things. You know what I mean? So we're just living in that fear of what's about to happen state. I feel most Americans are there. And to be honest, I feel like the average American doesn't know how it's gonna affect them, has no clue what may affect them. So they're just scared in general because they hear like the world is like the sky is falling. So, but like you said, because everybody kind of expects to be scared, like we're already scared before we've actually felt it. If that makes
Exactly.
sense, you know what I mean? So that's
Makes
what I
perfect
think
sense.
is going on right now, where like that uncertainty is what's killing people. And that's really where we're at. So again, interest rates have held steady. So it's been pretty stable. So in that regard, we're cool. But like you said, if we were to drop rates too suddenly, then we're gonna have a repeat of pandemic. That pandemic, those pandemic prices were crazy. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then now we got people scared to get out of their homes because the same home that you know what I mean, they can't get the the same home, how do I put this? The same home they got is going to cost them more because it's going to be higher interest rates. So they're holding on to their homes, which is tightening the supply. So there's less supply. People are not, you know what I mean? So, I mean, there's people smarter than me at the feds. So, again, like I said, if I'm able to think about this and deduce this, like I'm sure they got people crunching numbers right now and they're like figuring out what they need to do. But I can't remember when it was. I think the next Fed meeting is gonna be later this year. Yeah, I think there was supposed to be one and it got pushed. Don't quote me on that, but I'll have to check.
So think about this, just based off of what we just said.
Hmm.
Understanding that people nowadays are already expecting, there's a survey taken that people are expecting to pay more for goods and services. Okay.
Right,
And the Fed, imagine if the Fed decided to go ahead and decrease interest rates right now while people are already thinking they're going to be paying more for goods and services. That's a perfect storm for inflation. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
And for
Perfect storm
prices
for inflation.
to go dumb crazy.
Exactly. So for the Fed to hold on those interest rates while people, are already expecting to pay more, it might be a great idea to hedge off inflation for us to then find a way to stabilize.
Right, right. Because I mean, if interest rates drop, like what interest rates affect is we've had an episode about this before, but interest rates affect how much money is. Like you could buy money. You know what I mean with interest rates, and interest rates are going to affect how much it costs to buy that money. So it's like if you want to buy money to go get a house, then you go buy that money. But with higher interest rates, that money costs you more. Or with lower interest rates, that money is going to cost you less. So if money costs less to buy, that means more people are going to be doing it. So I'm really trying to put this in layman's terms so like anybody can understand what we're talking about here. So when the interest rates when Fed lowers the interest rates, money is more available, more people come out to play. When interest rates are higher, people are more scared, they like hold back. That's also not necessarily that good for the economy because we need the circulation of money. Money has to be flowing for any like substantial economy. So that's where it puts Jerome Powell in a tough situation. He was already in a tough situation, but then the volatility and unpredictability of President Trump, it probably makes this a lot more difficult. You know what I mean? Because you don't have, you don't at least have the luxury of consistency. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like I had to stop looking at my portfolio because I was like, you know what? I know I'm not about to pull my money out. Well, maybe Apple. I'm trying to move my Apple shares, but that's a different story. But I
Right.
know I'm not going to sell for the most part. So just stop looking because like I'm just going to start yo-yoing and it's going to feel like a roller coaster because every morning I wake up, I see a new headline. And it's
Hmm.
like, this is Donald Trump himself. You know what I mean? Like, it's people quoting Donald Trump. I'm like, man, this dude got so much to say. Like, he's got a lot to say. But yeah, it's been a lot. It's been
100%.
very exciting.
Yeah. Right now, is what's really popular, and I mean, it's always been popular, but what's really what people are really looking for. I don't know if you've heard of like subject to like real estate deals when you're trying
Hmm.
to acquire property from somebody, whether you're going to flip it or you're going to hold on to it as a buy and hold. A lot of folks are looking for subject to deals because they're trying to keep those interest rates intact from whenever the homeowner bought the house. And just to kind of give a brief overview, a subject to deal is pretty much acquiring a house with the previous homeowner's mortgage in place because they have a specific interest rate that's more favorable to you than if you were to buy that house at the current rate, right? So there's
Hmm.
structure to acquire homes that way, and they're really like popular, especially right now when when I think what was it about 2 3 years ago when interest rates were down to like 3%, and there's still homes with that 3% rate that home that investors could acquire. And those are really popular right now because, trying to get a house right now with the interest rate at its current level. What is it right now?
Right now, we're like in the high sixes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're in the high sixes. I mean, we came close to the closest we came to where it's stable. Like five is about stable. Like five is a standard market. We got close to high fives. We were really in the low sixes, but then like things have been jumping back up again. That fear, yeah, like I would say low sixes, probably. I mean, high sixes. We're probably in the low sevens by now, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah, I don't check every single day. I check often. But yeah, I know before the weekend we were high sixes. Right now it's probably seven to be quite honest. Yeah. No, I do agree with that. Like paying attention to interest rate is important, but I think it's only important to be aware of what your monthly payment would be. Because I feel like people get into this mode of like waiting for interest rates. And especially right now with like what I said, a volatile president and a volatile economy, you don't know what's going to happen. Interest rates will drop for 2 days and then you wake up and it's back to something else. So it's like you can't really just sit and wait for the perfect interest rate. Like as soon as you know you're ready and you can get approved for a monthly amount that works for you, I really feel like that's your best time to move. And if that means like making sacrifices or getting rid of some of the things, and I'm talking about like primary homes. I'm not talking about like savvy investors. That's a whole different story. They're not worried about interest rates the same way. I'm talking about primary home buyers or like first time investors. You know what I mean? Like, don't let the interest rate stop you. Like, just be more concerned about what your monthly payment is. Anyways, before we digress, yeah. So, but another thing I did want to bring up is that unemployment. We have seen a tick up in unemployment. It did raise a little bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Which is another indication of the economy. So one thing I've been noticing is there's all these indicators that are popping up. Like I saw a report that mentioned how hairdressers, their like regular customers are coming in less and less, and
Hmm.
they're not getting different hairstyles less and less, and that's a sign of a recession. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And my wife and I like went on a date a few nights ago, and we were in a part of town that when things are good in the economy, you're going to see a lot of people at. And it wasn't a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like there's restaurants, there's things to do. Nightlife didn't see a lot of people. And I'm like, these are signs of what's going on. So even though nobody's called anything a recession yet, it doesn't mean that regular people aren't feeling the impact, especially in their pocket.
100%. And to your point, AD, inflation rates are up 4.2 percent as of right now. Even though there was an addition of jobs, about 228,000 jobs were added in the month of March. So yeah,
Mm,
that's something to definitely take into consideration, and and we have to be cognizant of what we're going to see in the future. If employment rates are going to continue to drive up, is there going to be a dip in job output in the upcoming months? So it's definitely something that we need to keep track of and be ready for.
you're right, right. Yeah, and then at the end of the day, what we know is that all of this is still tightening the housing supply because people are afraid to make moves. So all that fear, all that expectation of things being expensive, it's making again that flow of money is not quite flowing the way it needs to be.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes.
We shall see. We shall
This
see.
wasn't for any answers, you guys. This was just for updates today.
Yeah. That's for
Because I ain't
observation.
got no answers. I got none for you.
Nobody got answers.
Right.
So, man, if there was a beef for today, man, it would be, man, let's think about it for a second.
I'll say be nimble. You know what I mean? Because I don't want when I say that I really feel people should not be too rigid or too stuck in any kind of moves right now or any ideas. right now. You know what I mean? Just be willing. I'm not saying be inactive. Like, I'm not saying do nothing, but be strict with your goal and loose with the mode of how you get there. You know what I mean? Because allow things to change because it's volatile again.
That part.
So that
So you,
volatility, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So you heard him. You heard him.
Right.
Be nimble, be you, and be uncommon.
All right, man.
Indeed.